Hello and welcome to another informative Connectionology webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your host, as always, Executive Director of Connectionology, Ginger Jarek.
Hi, everybody. Welcome and happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're halfway through the week, but this afternoon, we have an incredible webinar planned for you. And I'm so happy to announce that we are bringing back Georgia and Alonso and Doug, and we're going to have a great conversation. It's going to be very interactive. We definitely want you to put your questions either in the chat box or the Q&A box and let us know where you're from. I know people are joining in from all around the country. We love our paralegals and legal assistants, and we really enjoy doing these webinars for you. So you're in for a treat. I also would love to thank all of our amazing partners with HMR, Fast Funds, OnPoint, and Plaintiff Support. They are incredible, and they're the reason why we're able to continue doing these webinars for you guys. So please support them, reach out to them. Later on, you're going to meet some of them as well. But we would definitely like to extend our gratitude towards everybody. But let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to talk about today. For those that know Doug, you know that he is no stranger to the underdog. He's a trial lawyer in Melbourne, Florida since 1985, and he has a reputation of being the lawyer's lawyer. He's been trying and winning the unwinnable, and he has a big passion for the courtroom. He's handled thousands of cases. He's taken hundreds of them to trial. He's scored some of the largest verdicts in Florida's history. And he's also a past president of the Florida Council of the Bar Association of Presidents, as well as the very first recipient of the Brevard County Association Professionalism Award. And he also serves on the executive committee of the National Trial Lawyers. And as you guys know, in his free time, he loves spending time with his family, his beautiful granddaughter, and he's also active in his church as well. So, Doug, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, and let's have a great discussion.
Thank you, Ginger. Yep, today is the 4th birthday of Lucy Mae Beam, our granddaughter. Thanks for bringing that up. My oldest son, Riley Beam, and his brother, Nathan Beam, work with us. And Riley took the day off with his wife, Michelle, for Lucy Mae and the three of them to have a great time. Meanwhile, we're here going to have a great time, coast to coast, webinar, Connectionology. There's Alonso Palencia all the way by the internet with us today from Beverly Hills, California. How are you, Alonso?
I'm doing well, Doug. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. This is a gentleman who's done it the way, I don't know, maybe Alonso, you can share this. You started out as a file clerk with your law firm, Gary A. Dordick, the Dordick Law Corporation. You started as a file clerk, and here you are 29 years later as, well, I guess you're a senior paralegal now, trial paralegal, but you love what you do. You bring a fresh perspective to it. You and Georgia are two of our most popular speakers on the Connectionology webinars. And it's just great to have you on here and have you bring your perspective from California. And I understand you had an election there or a recall vote there, a lot of activity out there in California. And I think, are you involved, Alonso, with the TBI Med Legal and it's called CALA, I believe, out in Las Vegas. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do with those groups? Or?
Yeah, I mean, with well, let me start off. Hello, everyone. How you doing? And I will start it this way. I want to wish my beautiful wife a happy birthday. Tomorrow will be her birthday. And if I don't say that, I'll be in trouble today. So happy birthday to my beautiful wife. I love you. CALA, we do have an organization called CALA here. I've been part of it. They've now opened it up to a lot of the legal staff, which is good. We learn from each other, exchange ideas, doctors, motions, the whole works on there, which is a good organization. I am part of TBI this year, which is being held at the end of the month, part of the legal staff group, which is really nice. They've opened it up. I hear they probably have about 2,500 legal staff attending, which if you're able to attend, I know a lot of them East Coast and everything. it's a great event to attend. So we learn a lot. I'm going to be one of the speakers along with several of the other legal staff. Gary's one of the speakers in the attorney track. So we're going to be busy that weekend, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just a great way to learn how to work up TBI cases, from doctors to lawyers to the legal staff, and how everybody maneuvers their cases here in California and probably around the country as well. So if you can attend, it'd be great to attend.
Is that that's the end of this month? In what city, Gary? I mean,
It's going to be in San Diego, California, which will be nice. We have the beautiful weather over here. I hear in Florida it's kind of raining. So if any of you guys want to come down here, or Georgia and everything, come on.
Well, I will see you there. I'm going to be there with John Romano and a number of our speakers from Connectionology, including you. Unfortunately, Georgia has to keep the home fires burning.
Oh, you got to bring Georgia. Come on, Georgia.
Yeah, so we got to get her out to San Diego, maybe next
Alonso.
Come on, Georgia.
Yeah,
So Alonso, you also love sports. We might work that in a little bit later. I see a little something about the Lakers behind you there. I see you also coached in the National Junior Basketball League and have coached in the YMCA, and you're involved in the Los Angeles Travelers Charities. And obviously you're a family person because you recognize your wife. Happy birthday. And what's her name?
Fabiola Palencia.
Happy birthday. All right. So I've been married 38 years to Catherine Johnson Beam. She wants credit time served 15. Okay. Now we go to Georgia Kent. Now Georgia's here probably less than a half a football field from me here in Melbourne, Florida. Georgia's our senior trial paralegal. Gary Dordick relies on Alonso. I rely on Georgia. She is a very, very, like Alonso, extraordinarily experienced trial paralegal. She trains our paralegals here. She's our go-to person in our trials. She's incredible with her attention to details. She can really get it done for us here. She's worked before we got her to work here. Before she came here, she worked for two of the best law firms in the United States. And then she's well-rounded perspective. She's creative thinker, and she's just superb. So Georgia, I see you're in your office. We wear masks except when we're in a webinar like this. We're very careful about COVID and what's going on with that. So Georgia, how are you doing? You're here on the East Coast. Alonso's out on the West Coast. Tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about today, and then we're going to get started.
Oh, well, thank you. It's so good to be here. I really love this opportunity to get to be here and share things and to work with Alonso, and always, with Mr. Beam, moderator, and Ginger's fantastic. I'm excited about today because I think that we have some, what to do, the role of the litigation paralegal, that's a huge topic. And the perspective that, I'm coming from a point of reference for the state of Florida, Alonso, of course, from California. But I think that the things that we talk about when we get together kind of can be implemented across the nation. You just kind of have to look at your own state and see if there's some kind of comparable thing to the things that we're going to touch on. But yeah, I'm really excited, Mr. Beam, to be here. You say we're going to just jump in. So you tell me what you want to do. I mean, we've got, when you look at the role of the litigation paralegal, that kind of starts once the negotiations in pre-litigation have stalled. You get to that point where it's time to file suit. So there are things that we look at. I don't know about you, Alonso, but the first thing I do is I look at the things that our pre-lit department, because we have a fabulous pre-litigation division here at this firm, and they do pre-litigation summaries, expense sheets, they have charts, they have demand letters, they have notes from negotiations that they've done. So that gives us a great starting point for jumping into litigation. So tell me a little bit about what you think, Alonso. How do you guys do when it transfers into your litigation?
Well, the thing is, I do both pre-litigation and litigation, so I kind of determine when it's going to go into litigation. I think with us, it varies on the case as to when it's going to transition to litigation. We got a great pre-litigation team that works it up, medical-wise, representation letters, and like you said, demand letters. The majority of our cases that we do get, depending on who the defendant is, will pretty much go into litigation fairly quickly. There's going to be no reason for it to settle within pre-lit. So in terms, we run obviously insurance information to see what we can find. If we have a trucking company or a big corporation, we're definitely going straight into litigation. There's no toying around in pre-litigation. On the other cases, we do have some medium-sized cases that we will work up in pre-lit. But our team puts it all together from medicals. And like you said, you get into litigation, they have the list of medicals, the providers, the names, the preservations. We probably have all the photos from inspections we've done early on. And it gives us a good foundation to start that litigation, know exactly which way we're going to go. So just like you, I mean, the pre-litigation is a good foundation for the litigation aspect of it.
Georgia, let me add something. I don't know if any of you today did shift work. You know, you have first shift, second shift, then you have the graveyard shift, you know, the midnight, overnight. It always seemed like when I worked shift work, the first shift would complain about the third shift. The second shift would say you had to clean up what the first shift didn't do. And the third shift would say, well, that second shift just can't get it done. How important is it to really have a seamless transition from pre-litigation to litigation and communication? I know of a story once where a paralegal, her idea of moving a file from pre-litigation to litigation was to take the file and drop it on the floor outside of the litigation paralegal's office and say, here, he's yours, like that. I don't think that's the way to do it. How do y'all try to work? What is the infrastructure or the foundation you're looking for from pre-lit when it comes to you? Now, Alonso, you say you do it from soup to nuts. Georgia, we have a pre-litigation approach. How do you do that? Do you value them? How do you let them know you appreciate it, or do you just criticize them?
I totally value the pre-litigation department. Without them, I would be sunk, because when a case moves to litigation from their department, it's moving really fast. And we're fortunate enough that, you know, the complaints get filed, the initial discovery gets sent out. So I don't have to immediately start reviewing that file. I have a little bit of wiggle room to get myself up to speed with things before I have to start responding to discovery, working on getting documents to experts and that kind of thing. I think that one thing that I find, you know, Alonso mentioned some of these, when you have corporate defendants, you know, so much can happen in the corporate world very quickly. So I can focus on things like ensuring that the defendant that was named in the complaint is still the proper defendant, because those things change, mergers happen, sales, you know, in one day to the next. So we can focus on, you know, getting the things going without having to worry about jumping right into discovery and having to review an entire file. We've got summaries from the pre-litigation department that allow us to see what are the things, where did they leave off? Are they still waiting on a disclosure of insurance? Do we have a defendant that is not properly named and we've had to list them as a John Doe? Whatever the situation may be, we can jump in on those things. And some of the, as Mr. Beam would call it, probably minutia, we don't have to do that initially right off the get-go.
mean, I agree with Georgia. The pre-litigation is a huge value to us. We value them a lot. Without them, I mean, they're building the foundation to the case when they initially come in. We rely on them. I mean, everybody says pre-lit is fairly easy. It's not. It's a lot of client contact. It's a lot of getting the medicals. It's a lot of making sure these clients get to these doctors, and in turn, still monitoring the liability aspect of these cases, making sure you got preservation letters, making sure you have all the information in terms of insurance to see where this case is going to go. So without the pre-litigation team that we have, our cases would be sunk. I mean, we'd be scrambling in litigation. So it's always great to have a good team like we do, that the transition into litigation, it's the team's built together. Basically, we're a whole team here. Everybody has to pick up the pieces. I mean, we're human. There's things that may be left off during pre-lit, but everybody here knows how to pick up the pieces and just fill them all in. So it's, I agree that you have to have a great foundation in terms of your pre-lit to make it a good transition into litigation.
Well, Alonso, using the basketball analogy, the ideal team is where you do a legal no-look pass, right?
There
Like
you go.
it's a legal team where you know each other's moves enough because you work well together that you sort of are comfortable with each other, right?
Yeah, everybody knows their role. And it's when you have a team that knows their role and what they're supposed to do, all the pieces fall into place. Everybody knows what their job is. You have minimal supervision. You do meet, obviously, in terms of the cases, but if everybody knows their role, the cases get worked up properly, and transition from pre-lit to litigation you don't even notice it.
Can you,
quite honest.
there's a term of art I've heard in California. We don't use it in Florida. Something about opening up a policy or something like that. I've heard that in California. In Georgia, you might say how we look for our coverage in Florida. Is there a phrase in California that talks about opening up a policy or something like that, an insurance policy, or what is that?
Well, in opening policy, you make a demand for whatever the insurance proceeds are. You need enough information to hand the insurance company to pay their policy. Most of the times, insurance companies, unfortunately, don't make the right decision. So if you have somebody that needs surgery, you believe the insurance policy might be minimal, you take the doctor's report, you do a demand, you give them a time frame. Some people give 20 days, 30, whatever the comfort level is, and you send them your demand with all the information necessary for them to evaluate. At that point, they'll choose to either pay you the policy or take their gamble, and you're going to go into litigation. And if you have heavy hitters like you, Doug, or on my end, Gary Dordick, they're going to be in trouble. So the more information you give them, if they refuse to pay it, the better you are off in litigation, because the presentation is, I gave you all the information. I told you the client needed surgery. It was a rear ender and you should have paid it and you chose not to. Now you're in trouble. I mean, I've had Gary Dordick do that numerous times to insurance companies where they should have paid the policy early on and they didn't. One perfect example was somebody didn't pay a $15,000 policy. Gary goes to trial and gets $125 million. So
Houston, we have a problem.
A huge problem there. So the insurance companies are on the hook. We have a lot of those here, and a lot of it is the adjusters just not thinking through to make the right choice whether to pay it or not. And a lot of them choose the wrong way, and you got great trial lawyers that take advantage of that in terms of, okay, you're in trouble now. There's no point in settling.
Well, Kim Bergen of Florida says, I had been in pre-litigation prior to going into litigation. I have now been in the litigation department for 1 year. I love it! Exclamation point. We were told when working a file in pre-suit, treat the file as if it, all caps, is, IS, all cap, going into litigation, whether it is or not. What do y'all make of that? Georgia, what do you think of Kim's comment?
I love that. I think that's beautiful. And I think that, again, I'm blessed with the setup that is here at the firm where I'm working, because we, our litigation department, I believe they do just that. We have the occasional ones where, you do that quick 1-page time demand stating, here it is, this is the situation, your policy limits are X. You need to pay them. We've got a surgical recommendation, or sometimes the client's already had surgery, and those you don't mess around with. But our pre-litigation department spends a lot of time with file organization, making sure that they have the right pre-existing medical histories, and other things that they might need to do, whether it's, other accidents, but they make sure that they've noted all of that so that when it comes to us, it is ready to go. We can just then start plugging in with the deadlines that we're going to be faced with, because once it hits litigation, then of course now, especially now with the new case management plans and case management orders that are put into place, we are going to be moving cases into trial a lot quicker, I do believe, than before. It looks like the courts are trying to streamline. They're saying that, they want them done on a general basis. They want them done within 18 months, which is wonderful. It keeps these long delays from happening. So by having a strong foundation coming from the pre-litigation department, we can take it, have it ready. As soon as those 20 days past the last pleading is done, we can notice it for trial and get it going. So I think it's critical for that. I'm extremely appreciative for doing what was her name, Kimberly, that, treat a file in pre-lit as if it is going to litigation.
So at your firm, Alonso in Georgia, if you could give us some of that details, I was told a long time ago, don't rattle your saber unless you're going to pull it. So in other words, if you tell somebody you're filing a lawsuit, unless there are extraordinary circumstances, you file the lawsuit. If you give them a time demand, what do y'all find? Where's the tipping point? Where do you go from pre-lit into litigation where people like you, Alonso, and Georgia, you kick in? Where is that tipping point? And then what do you do to get that case moving? Because if you're not moving it, insurance company's not paying any money, right? Or the defendant with assets is not being held responsible if it's not an insurance company or something. What do y'all do?
I think like in our firm and also in your firm, we're blessed to be able to do both pre-lit and litigation. There are some firms that don't do litigation. So on our end, yes, every case we take, like Kimberly said, you work it like it's going into litigation. Now, at what point do you get it into litigation? I think it has a lot to do with how big the corporation is on the defendant side and how big your injuries are. Ours is if we have significant injuries and a big policy, move it straight into litigation. Other ones is work them up, see what we have, try and settle it pre-lit if possible. And the moment it's some minimal offer, straight into litigation. There's no more negotiating. You get one shot to negotiate. And for us, our firm is built more on litigation than it is pre-litigation.
Right.
So when we say we're filing a lawsuit and we're going to trial, we're going to trial. We're filing that lawsuit. There is no, everybody here in California and the industry knows when, the Dordick Law firm says, we're going to trial, and Gary says, I'm going to try this one, he is definitely going to try it. So we try and get into litigation as soon as possible, especially now with I would say the courthouse is a little bit backed up. The sooner we get them in, the quicker it starts to move. And, we can either try and settle it somewhere in between or get it into trial.
How about you, Georgia?
I agree with Alonso. I think that, it kind of depends on the type of case and the injuries. I think if there's no reasonable offers, there's no sense in keeping it in pre-litigation. If it's strong injuries and the coverage is there, and they need to pay, then put it into litigation. Sometimes that's the push that's necessary to get an adjuster to get it out of that lower level adjuster and to one that can really make a decision on a case.
So what do you do once the decision made, it's going into litigation? What do you put together? What are the steps you take, Georgia, that might help some of the paralegals know what you do to bring pressure right away on the defense? And what are the things you make sure are done? I think you mentioned get all the defendants served timely, right? Yeah. Can you tell us what you try to do to come out of the box hot?
Well, I think it's important to make sure to stay on that, make sure that the defendants are all served. Once the answers are in, well, make sure that the answers are in. If the answer doesn't come in timely, get your motion for clerk's default done. You know, get those things, let them see that you're serious, that you're not going to be sitting on it. You know, go ahead, if you know, get defendants' depositions set, start working on getting those corporate rep depots set if we need to, if it's a corporate defendant. Start, looking for your experts. What experts do you need on board? You know, is there a TBI involved? Do you need to get your client over to somebody for an independent medical examination? You know, get those things done, start getting it set up, just keep the things moving, make sure your file is in order, make sure you've got the records, make sure you've got a good understanding of any pre-existing conditions. And any prior accidents. You know, do you have the photos from what you need? If it is an auto accident or a trucking case, you know, do you have the photos that you need? Have you gotten in touch with the people that do the black boxes? You know, I know for our state, there's, well, not just our state, but there are very few that do downloads of black boxes in trucking cases. So you have to be very mindful of getting on board quickly to get those things done. The preservation of evidence letters, make sure that all of that has been taken care of. You know, just kind of being the second set of eyes on some of those particulars. Do you have all of the insurance? There's a handful of times where we've gotten a case and then found out a little bit later that there was an excess policy that was never disclosed. So those things are very important. So you have to double check and triple check and, you know, just start getting the depots, start making sure that you've got your notices done for, and get your discovery out. Is there additional discovery? Is there a unique situation with the case where you might need to have somebody go do an inspection? Is it a construction collapse case that needs an inspection done? And get with your attorney early on to find out what his thought processes are going to be, what kind of strategy he wants to take at least early on.
I'm exhausted, Alonso, after hearing all that.
Me too.
One of those could be a paralegal topic. So when you serve your lawsuit, there's a great trial lawyer out of West Virginia named Dino Colombo. And what Dino does, sometimes he files his lawsuit, he sets his client for deposition. And they go, hey, wait, we're supposed to do that. He goes, no, I'm going to take my client's deposition. And they'll go, well, we object to that. He goes, what are you objecting to? I'm taking my client's deposition. You can cross-examine him. He does that in some of his cases, and it really is disruptive in the sense that the defense doesn't know quite what to do with it. But there are a number of, like, when you serve the defendant with the lawsuit, the complaint, you serve discovery, Georgia? Can you tell us why you do that?
When the complaint, well, initially you want to get the information in that you need to help build your case for trial. You get the discovery out so that you can keep the case moving. You can schedule the depots as soon as the discovery dates are due, because there's always delays. In the best laid plans, there's always going to be a delay. The sooner you get your discovery out, that first extension is not going to hurt so bad when they ask you for, you know, an extra 20 days, or, you know, or if they say, oh, we just got, you know, our client just now gave us the discovery you served with the complaint and we need an extra 30 days. So that's not going to hurt so bad. But if you don't serve your discovery early on and then it comes into litigation, you're working the case and you start getting ready to set depots, and it's like, oh, I can't. We didn't serve discovery. Now we've got to serve it, wait 30 days, plus any extensions they request. It can just cause unnecessary delay. And the point of putting it into litigation is we're done dealing with the negotiating with the adjusters. It's time for the attorneys to get involved, get serious about our clients' injuries, and move the case forward. And let's either get it to the judge, or let, the judge and jury, or work out some kind of settlement with somebody who's going to talk about it and take things seriously.
Alonso, what do you think, looking at the Lakers behind you there? Do you think in litigation you should be running a full court press? You think
as soon as you file that lawsuit, I would say here in California, we have, I think it's 10 days after you served it, that you can serve the defendant with discovery. You serve them, you set the depots of all, if it's a corporation, PMKs, or if it's a defendant driver himself, you serve it. You get full advantage of it. Once defense attorneys come on board, like Georgia said, they're asking for extensions, the whole works. The one thing we look at on our cases, I don't know if in Florida they have this, is we have what they call priority motions. You get everybody served. If you have a minor here under 14, you can file for a preference motion. Somebody over 70, you can file for a preference motion. If their medical condition is deteriorating and you get a declaration from a doctor, you can file a preference motion. So we have ways of putting a lot of the pressure on them. A preference motion puts our trial, I believe, 120 days out. You can't get any more pressure than that. But you have to make sure you have everything in order. Like Georgia said, make sure you have your experts in order. Make sure you have the preservation, make sure you've done all your inspections, taken all the depots necessary, because before you know it, that trial's really breathing down on you. And that puts pressure on carriers, insurance, defendants. Pretty soon you're either heading to trial in 120 days or you're getting a very, very good settlement on a very good case. So you have to keep the full court pressure going on them. Find ways to move that trial date closer, advance it as soon as you can. Some of these clients, like I said, minors, people with medical conditions deserve their day in trial and/or a good settlement in their pocket.
Georgia, what do we do in Florida if we have somebody 65 and over to bring some heat?
Well, we can do our motions for elder speedy trial and get them on an earlier docket.
Right. So, Phyllis, what do you tell your clients, both of you, when you go into litigation? Because clients have certain notions of it that we tell them, for instance, it's not justice. It's not like going to McDonald's. It's going to take a look. Special orders don't upset us, but it takes time to get these things done. How do y'all incorporate the client into this? Because it's really hard. You're focusing on the details, but your clients, how do you handle them?
It's just keeping them apprised. Here we have the moment we file the lawsuit, we have a letter that goes out to the clients, which includes the lawsuit. Normally that makes them panic. We'll get the call, they'll be panicked. When are we going? I don't want to go to trial and all of this. It's just assuring them what the process is going to be. You can sit down with them, explaining them exactly how the process is going to go: discovery, depositions, medical examinations, possibly mediation, and trial. And here in California and Los Angeles, the courts will issue a trial date maybe 18 months out. So we have 18 months before we hit the trial. So these are the steps that are going to go along the way. You'll still have to go to your doctors, and this is the process. Once they hear that, then they're okay because they know the steps. To them, going into litigation or even having a lawsuit, it's unknown to them what's going to happen. A lot of them will watch court TV and thinks it's exactly how it's going to happen, or they'll watch a movie, or they're like, is that how it's going to go? No, it's not. You have to explain to them really what the steps are along the way. Sending them letters, just keeping them apprised. giving them updates, any offers, make sure you let the client know, make them sign off, either accepting or rejecting. So if you do that, I think the clients are okay along the way, but it's always contact with them through discovery, phone calls, all of that.
Well, Georgia, there's a debate in our law firm, for instance, over whether you give the clients interrogatories. In Florida, we have standard interrogatories that a lot of defense counsel, we know that they're either going to be used or they're going to be close to those questions. Kim Bergen, again, of Florida, says they have a client sign an authorization to file suit. What do y'all think of that? That's interesting. What do you think, Georgia?
I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. I think that, the attorneys here speak to the clients and discuss with them, whether or not their case, whether we need to put it into litigation. I think most of the clients, they don't really know. They don't want to go into litigation. They don't understand it. They've seen, people talk about being, lawsuit happy or, so they don't want to be known as somebody who sues people. So they don't really understand that sometimes that is the only way to get your compensation for the wrongs that have been done to you. So I think that is an interesting idea, getting their permission. I think we get their permission not with a signed, written document, but I think when they come into our firm, they come in with the notion that they are going to have attorneys that they can trust, and that to a certain extent, provided you do what Alonso said and you keep communication open with them, explain to them the steps. And then once you've done what Alonso said, then you do that again 2 or 3 more times to keep them understanding the process and the steps, that they pretty much have a level of comfort and know that if it's going into litigation, there's a reason.
Okay. We have 2 of our sponsors who are going to talk to us for just a moment. We have Mike with HMR is going to talk with us, and also Leon with Plaintiff Support. I don't know which order they're going to go in, Ginger. Maybe you can help us with that, but they're going to talk to us for just a few minutes, and then Georgia, we're going to pick up with where we are in the outline and take it from there when we come back. So Mike, hello. I think I'm going to see you out in Santa Fe at the Connectionology seminar we're having next week. It'll be great to see you out there. How are you today?
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to that. I was in Santa Fe last week, so it's a fantastic time of year to be there. So
All right.
HMR, let me get right into it. HMR, we're a medical funding company. We're able to provide medical funding to uninsured or underinsured plaintiffs nationwide through a network of providers that we have, so you can focus on the merits of your case. That's one thing that we do. We specialize in large surgeries, burns, amputations, and another thing that we do is traumatic brain injuries. We do quite a bit of those, so that's becoming more and more apparent that there's a need for that in this business, and that's something that we really specialize in. Another part of our business is pre-settlement funding to plaintiffs. We're able to do advances on qualified cases for things like everyday living expenses. I mean, everybody's got a mortgage to pay, a car payment. These aren't for, it's not money for trips to Disneyland or anything like that, or to pay for Christmas presents, but this keeps people's lights on and allows them to, focus on getting better during these difficult times. And we're able to extend those. And these monies can also be used for things like surgical deposits. I know in my area, I'm in Texas, a lot of the surgery centers are asking for large deposits of anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 for cases. And then they're taking a letter of protection for the rest of the case. No matter how successful you are, if you've got 10 of these big $25,000 deposits out, that's a lot of cash laid out that you could be using in other places in your practice. So we're able to do advances on that. And all the advances that we do in the pre-settlement funding are non-recourse. So if things don't go your way, everybody walks away and we focus on the next one. Great thing about working with HMR, it doesn't always have to be our way. We can be creative with, how we're able to work with you. Just pick up the phone and give us a call. Let's have an honest conversation. If we can help you, great. If we can't, I understand that too. Thank you for your time. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you for, and I see here Ginger said we'll be hearing from Ted Mollison a little bit on the coffee drawing.
Yes, sir.
That'll be fun too. So Ginger's already pumped up. She wants to see who's going to win. Leon Branham, how are you today, Leon, with Plaintiff Support? Tell us
Doing great, Glenn.
where are you reporting from today?
I'm recording from the sunny East Coast of New Jersey, as John Romano likes to say. It's always sunny here.
Right, like that. Tell us about Plaintiff Support. The gold.
Yeah, so those who aren't familiar with Plaintiff Support, our founder, Joe Gennardo, actually founded the industry some near 29 years ago. And since then, Joe's company, family of companies, has funded over $2 billion with over 25,000 or 20,000 satisfied customers and attorneys. We offer the lowest rates in the industry, and we're committed to responsible funding, meaning you're not going to see us on TV advertising to your plaintiffs, when they can't work, offering them a loan. We don't sell money to clients. We work with attorneys to help support their clients. As I've mentioned in the past, it's like a financial David versus Goliath, with the plaintiff attorney having to cover their own expenses upfront on a contingent basis. And the defense has all their fees and expenses covered by deep-pocketed insurance companies. So naturally, this creates a culture where the defense will delay case resolution and will attempt to outspend you as a tactic for your client to accept less than what their case is worth. So what's a plaintiff attorney supposed to do, right? They can try self-funding cases, but your cases are like your kids. You can't choose which is your favorite. They all need to be funded similarly, right? And if you're funding cases, sometimes you can't fund other things like overhead and marketing and case acquisition. Sometimes you'll refer a case out, which is great if you need someone with particular expertise. But if you don't cover your expenses, well, it's going to cost you on the referral split. You're going to give up additional percentage. Many great attorneys like yourself, Doug, realize the importance of working with the best experts. Sometimes attorneys will make a mistake and get the less expensive expert. But as the saying goes, when you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and the best experts are worth their weight in gold. So what do? Do you get a bank line? Well, a bank's a place that'll give you an umbrella when it's sunny, like it is here in Jersey today, and they'll ask for it back when it starts to rain. And the reason for that is because they're a highly regulated industry, and they're not able to value what a plaintiff's firm's most valuable asset is, which is your cases, because it's on a contingent basis. And, unfortunately, reality sets in sometimes, and sometimes you have to accept less to live to fight another day. So at Plaintiff Support, what we've done is developed a suite of services to help in all these areas, right? We have pre-settlement, non-recourse funding for your plaintiffs so that they can withstand the litigation timeline, right? Without bowing into financial pressure. We have post-settlement funding solutions for attorneys and plaintiffs. So if you've got a settlement, but you haven't worked out the liens, we can still get you settlement funds now, or a portion of it now while the case still resolves. We have case cost funding for experts. So you can get experts on more of your cases to prove up the liability and to work up the damages. We have medical funding for your insured or uninsured clients nationwide. So if they need to pay for a surgery or a deposit on a surgery, or they don't have insurance that they need and they're out of state, we can help with that. We also have law firm lending. So if you've got a portfolio of cases that you're looking to leverage in order to get money for marketing or overhead or expansion, we're able to help in all these different assets. So really, whatever you need, we're here to help. This is my contact information, easily accessible. If the phone rings, I'll pick it up if I can. If not, leave a message and I'll call you right back. Look forward to supporting all the great work everyone does, and thanks for the opportunity. I'll put my my info in the chat box as well.
Thanks, Leon. And you're very responsive. I know whenever, over the years, we've known each other for a while, Leon.
Right.
Over the years, whenever I reach out, you get right back to me. So I very much appreciate that.
Thanks, Doug.
Good to see you, man. All right, back to Georgia. We were talking, we do have a question I wanted to, that looked in Kim Bergen again. She is really on fire here with some great comments.
I want to ask something though, Doug.
Go ahead. Sure. Go for it.
I know she said they get them to sign an authorization for pre-suit or to file suit.
Right.
What do they do if the client refuses to sign it?
Well, yeah, but wouldn't you want to know that?
Meaning, if you present that, wouldn't that cause a problem? The client says, well, I don't want it to go into litigation. Now you're kind of stuck.
Well, Kim might be answering it. She says, the attorney, of course, talks to the client while negotiations are going on during pre-suit. If negotiations stall and the attorney feels like it should go to litigation, then he or she explains to the client why they feel that way and what the process of litigation is. If the client agrees, then we have the client sign the authorization to file suit and provide the client with the quote partial interrogatories end quote to complete for us to try to get a jump on discovery. So you already have some information from perhaps.
Well, she actually wrote, then we don't file suit.
Ah, okay.
But do you lose the case at that point, or what do you do? I mean,
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get her on the panel.
This is fun because these are interesting issues, and I just wanted to bring that up because people. Let's see what else we have here. If anyone else added something, yeah. So. George, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Alonso. And Kim, thank you. I mean, you're sparking a really productive discovery. One of the participants also talked about, Stacy Fields here is talking, some others, about medical records. By the time you get it in litigation, you're filing suit, negotiations have stalled. Where are you, God bless you, Georgia. Where are you, Georgia, at our law firm? How do we collect the records, the medical records? And I know you just love, I mean, I'm serious. Georgia, one of her favorite things in life is to do chronology. That's like, oh my gosh, that's one of the best things I could ask her to do. Other paralegals are like, give it to Georgia. She really enjoys that. But Georgia, tell us how pre-lit the litigation records, because how important are records and how do you get them and how do you try to keep your costs down? Linda Sherman mentions chart swap. I know we used a different provider, even though I'm sure that's a fine provider. What do you do?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that my love for chronologies is because that's how I get to know my client. That's how I get to know what's going on. And that's also how I can be most helpful to my attorney when it comes time for discussion about other providers that might be necessary, experts that might need to come in. And then when it gets time for mediations and all, I love knowing, I love having that information. And also it brings me a closeness with the client. But, you know, I love what's being done now with this high tech. For our clients to save with costs. And it also gives our clients something to do instead of monitoring BECA, which is our court system docket, and, you know, trying to figure out every single thing and calling for every single item that's filed in a case. So our client can actually move forward to try to get the documents for a highly reduced fee. We had one where it was going to cost about $3,000 plus for the records, and then it only ended up costing about $19 for getting it through the high tech. So that's one method. You know, watching your invoices for your clients too, because a lot of these services, chart swap, you'll see extra charges that are in there. So you go look at your local administrative hearings and orders that are online that you can access, and you can see what the intent of the medical records charges are. You can arm yourself with information to get charges reduced, get extraneous charges taken off. Sometimes you just have to pay for the records if they're necessary. We wait on some, you can determine whether you really need the records or not. I mean, defense counsel is notorious for requesting every single potential record that the person has ever seen. A gynecologist, for example, in a case that has absolutely nothing to do with, with the female. It might even be, let's say it's her husband, whatever. But that's kind of how ridiculous they can be sometimes in the records that they're requesting. So you review your notices of production non-party, make determinations on whether or not it's something you think you need right now. Make sure you're calendaring or diarying something for later if you need something else for later. But as far as getting the medical records, the one thing that I do notice is that we don't always get full, complete sets for pre-existing conditions right away. A good rule of thumb is order a medical bill from that provider. And you can sometimes determine from the medical bill, especially with a hospital, order the billing back 10 years if you want. And then you can tell from the billing if there is a record that you may need to get the full admission records, maybe even nursing notes as well. So it's a matter of just really knowing what you've got, knowing what's in your file, and making a determination of whether or not you think something is going to be helpful. And then just have to eat the cost sometimes and just do it.
Yeah. How about you, Alonso? What are y'all doing with records, and how important are they?
I mean, they're extremely important, I would say. We would request everything, primaries, the whole works. You have to have an idea what your client experienced prior to this accident. In pre-litigation, we'll order them by way of just a simple letter with an authorization. Most providers will turn it over, usually their entire chart, which is good for us because we get an idea of what the history is on the client. When it gets into litigation, the defendants obviously issue their subpoenas to get all our clients' medical records. We will piggyback on that because we want the same set that they have. We don't want any surprises. The expense is great. If the case is warranted, you want to make sure you know everything about your client, to best represent them. And so in our firm, Gary always says, I want all the subpoenaed medical records. Whatever defense orders, I want them. And that way there are no surprises. We do object. We look at the subpoenas when they come in. Sometimes, like, Georgia said, they're asking for irrelevant stuff. We will object to that. We will say you don't get 10 years, you get 3 years, and you don't get psych records. It's not a psych claim. And defense attorneys generally work it out saying, you're right, we won't ask for that. We just want this. But you always want to have what the defense has. You don't want any surprises because, there's times you'll send over your medical records to all your doctors. And when they're being deposed, maybe they have, 4 inches of records, and defense shows up with, 3 feet of record. And they're like, I didn't have any of that. So you want to make sure when you're representing your client, you have everything. Costs, unfortunately, are high, but we just had some of these great lending companies that say, look, we'll fund some of your litigation costs. That's another way, so it's very important to have all your medical records.
There are some attorneys, we don't subscribe to this philosophy. There's some attorneys will sign a blanket release to the defense and just say, send me whatever you get. That's pretty trusting, isn't it?
We don't do that. We will definitely not do that. I mean, the day I do that, I think I'll be out of a job because Gary will be like, I don't think so. There's times, obviously, if they're asking for psych records, that they'll come back, defense saying we need an authorization for these psych records, and we'll limit it to, the date and just that provider. But a blanket one, no, I don't see why you would give them a blanket one, because it's a free-for-all. They can get records from their priors and never tell you about it. So you don't want to take that gamble. Get them yourself and send them over to the defense counsel, if that's the way they want it, or have them subpoena it. Let them incur the costs.
Exactly. Well, Georgia, how do you feel about neuropsychological exams, records, dealing with mental health records? I think Alonso's already kind of tipped us on where they are on that. I think but how important is that in your work as a paralegal, Georgia? I mean, you are like you laser focus and look in all those records. And if you see anything dealing with mental health, tell us what you do.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to, well, first of all, object if they're seeking that in their subpoena, and there's not a mental health claim. And if there is a mental health claim, then you want to make sure that you do an objection and until there's such time you can get a protective order in place that's going to discuss the handling of those sensitive records. Not just your mental health, but there are other medical conditions that are not relevant, that are not necessary to be out there, and that other people are very private about, that they would prefer not. So you have to do that to respect the privacy of your client.
What would you two tell a new paralegal? This sounds a little overwhelming, maybe a little bit. All of this you have to do. What do you tell them about learning medical terms and getting to know anatomy? I mean, do you learn anatomy one case at a time? You learn about a neck in one case and you learn about an ankle in another one. And what would you recommend? And Georgia, I think you talked about secondary resources. Can you maybe segue into that? Maybe you and Alonso can encourage the new. You don't have to be young to be new as a paralegal. I like new paralegal. So how about hidden gems, Georgia? What do you recommend? And maybe Alonso can share, kind of put people, reduce their anxiety levels.
Sure. Oh, I do consider them hidden gems. Those your secondary resources. I love secondary resources because they can lead you to so many things. I mean, just a simple Google search for a medical terminology can help you find something that, that maybe even your attorney hadn't even thought of that's part of your case. Not just, well, here, for example, well, and it's not even just medical. Medical terminology, I love Google searches for that. You can print little excerpts for your attorney for an upcoming mediation. But I love using all sorts of different secondary sources, websites especially. Manta is a beautiful one for corporations to find corporate officers. We have Sunbiz in the state of Florida, which is our division of corporations, where you can search and find, the registered agent for service of process. You can search by an officer's name. Let's say that you have an individual listed and, now you find out he actually has 5 businesses. So his little $10,000 BI policy is, not all that you're going to be looking at for that particular person. So those things, again, help you lead to others. I wrote a whole list. I know that, for the state of Florida, I use a lot of different things for us. Even, looking at the Florida Bar website, there are great articles that will help educate you on a specific something. For example, you overhear your attorneys talking about a motion for summary judgment that's coming up, and you're new and you don't really understand it. Go to your bar website, look it up. You'll find a recent article where, it's put in more understandable terms than looking at the actual rule for motions for summary judgment, which you might not be able to catch early on. Proposals for settlement, the same way. If you don't really understand what language you're going to need to talk to a client about it, you can learn that from using a secondary source. Your Black's Law Dictionary, you can access one of those free online, or, paid sites. Your attorney may have certain ones that your attorney pays for that you can utilize. Your public records searches, go to your court's website. They have other links to other areas that you could use. Just your Brevard County, the property appraisers websites. If you need to find a person, you want to know, do they own their home? Certain things like that those are secondary resources that I love. I mean, we all know the primary ones that we're going to use, your Westlaw, your Lexis, your rules of civil procedure. But the secondary sources can lead you to some really good information that might not be accessible elsewhere.
I know here in our area, there's something called 211 Brevard, where it gives you a list when your clients maybe have been evicted and they need a place to stay. Maybe there's something here called the Daily Bread. There's a sharing center. There are not a lot, but there are resources in communities that will help us. How about your fellow colleagues in NALA? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, wow. Talking to a fellow paralegal about anything. We spend a lot of time in our office. We're a team here. And so we do that with our colleagues in office and outside the office. I have others that, I talk to about particular instances. If I have an issue with a case, of course, you keep the confidentiality. You don't mention names or anything. And that's very important, by the way, for a new paralegal. You don't want to be discussing your case, particulars of your case, names or anything like that with someone outside of your office. But you can talk generalities about an issue that you have with a particular case. And 9 times out of 10, they've had a case either exactly on point or very similar that they can talk to you about. And you would be amazed that when discussing a case with a fellow paralegal, they might ask you a question that prompts you to think of something that you had forgotten. And that can help save you in a lot of instances. That's what I find around here all of the time. We spend a lot of time communicating with one another about our cases.
And Alonso, in your cases, I know we have Thomson Reuters with West, and then you have LexisNexis. They have People Finder. You have to go through a kind of a security check for your firm, but then you can get a lot of information that's in the public record. Those are proprietary. I mean, you pay for this service and you need to be responsible with it. What do you think about what Georgia just said about these resources out there? Well, what does your firm look at?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, you can find a lot of stuff on Google nowadays. We are fortunate enough to have an in-house investigator that can do a lot of that stuff. But there's times he's very busy, so we have to do our own stuff, which is researching, defendants. You can go on Instagram. You can go on Facebook and find information on defendants. I have a paralegal here. She showed me a website where she tracked down my cell phone number, my home number, and I was like, what? So she's found doctors' cell phone numbers. There are plenty of resources out there. If you're new to the industry, it's good to join some of these associations. Like here we have CALA, we have, TBI, we have a lot of resources where you can bounce information off other paralegals. Like Georgia said, just keep everything confidential. Another great source to talk about, if you're looking at a case is obviously your attorney. Doug is very experienced. I'm sure Georgia goes up and say, look, I got this, and Doug will take his time and explain it to her. Same thing. I have Gary here that I can bounce things off him. Your attorney is a great source in terms for the cases. Where would the case go? What should I do? But resources, I mean, there's so much out there that all you have to do is take the time to find it. Westlaw is a good one, which everybody predominantly has. You can find people there. You can find cases there. like Georgia said, you get summary judgment motions and some of the terminology, you may be new to it. Google it. What's it about? What are they talking about? Why do they want to throw this case out? You know, I mean, paperwork comes in, read it. That's how I learned. I would read the paperwork. I would sit there and get an idea of what are they talking about. And maybe at that point you'll see it again. And pretty soon you're applying it to other cases that are similar to it. So the best resources are out there that you can use, or paperwork coming in, your attorney, and all of that.
Caroline Peterson took it a step further for us, said United Way runs a 211 program and it works all over the US where there is a United Way. Also, you can look for local quote street survival guides, end quote, which are a list of all resources in your area, and it's another United Way project. So that's very good, good to know. Also, we learned in some training the other day that, for instance, with Thomson Reuters or LexisNexis, oftentimes they have free attorneys if you call them. Now, when you see the $, stop. You know, that doesn't play well with management, okay? But if you have a question, don't do it. But you can call these 800 numbers and talk to lawyers, and they can help you. You can say, this is my issue. Our firm has an account with you. Can you help me? That's a pretty powerful tool too. So Georgia, you also use a date calculator. That's kind of important, isn't it?
Love that. Well, there's a couple of my favorites.
What are your favorites?
Okay, so my favorites are the Florida Health Licensing Portal. I absolutely love that because you can plug in the doctor's name or the nurse's name, and you can find their licensing. There's also a link within the summary of it that will take you if they've had any complaints filed against them. When you're doing medical malpractice, there's a national medical malpractice website. I would have to get that. I don't have that at my fingertips right at the moment, but you can pull that up, and it actually gives you a short summary of the actual lawsuit that was filed, whether it was about a wrong appendage that was operated on or removed, or and it tells you the amount that was settled. So that's helpful information for you. And then the date calculator, what you mentioned, Mr. Beam, love that, because you just very quickly put in the date that your document came in, and you calculate out whatever your time frame is. You need to go out 30 days, and or if you need to, go out 45 days, quickly just put in 45 days, and it jumps right to the date that you have, and it tells you whether it's what day of the week: Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And then also the beauty of that one is when you are calendaring or looking at your deadlines for trial, because in our court system, and now with the new case management plan, it's X amount of days before trial, X amount of days before trial, X amount of days before pretrial conference. So you're able to subtract on that date calendar too, and it puts you right to the date in a matter of seconds. I know I used to have an old round wheel. Used to love that. It's perpetual, so you could look it up there. But this new with online stuff, I'm trying to be new aged. I'm trying to go with the new flow, trying to remain young. So the internet's the way it's at. So I use the online date calculator. It's beautiful.
Wait, Georgia,
Yeah,
Georgia, you don't do it the old school way where you got the big calendar and count backwards one by one like we all used to back in the day?
Oh gosh.
You remember that? Going back and going, wait, it's a Saturday. Did I put it on a Monday or a Friday?
I'll tell you what, you better get those dates right, because that's a way to do a stress test without going to the doctor for a cardiac.
Well, I would have to do it back then, count it, and do it like 4 times to make sure that was the date.
Yeah.
But I do like the date calculator. I have one also on my system. It's like, okay, perfect. I don't have to count for claims 180 days because you end up losing track.
Also, we recommend at our firm that once a year, it's not a bad idea. I see Bruce Braxton. We're going to come to Bruce.
Hello.
But There's something called the Rules of Civil Procedure and the Rules of Judicial Administration. It's a good idea to read those, whether you're a lawyer or a paralegal. About once a year, if you kind of flip through there and read it, it's amazing. Now, Bruce is with Fast Funds. Bruce, where are you today?
I'm in Miami, Florida.
What's the weather like there?
Every day, sunny and warm. We have 2 seasons, night and day. Oh wait, 3, hurricane season. I forget about that.
But tell us about Fast Funds, and I know you're one of the pioneers, even though you're not that old, Bruce.
Yeah, I kind of inherited a pioneer's business. Fast Funds, a family business. My dad created the company approximately 27 years ago. My brother Jason and I are the principals. We're the ones that answer the phone when you call. We're the ones that talk to your clients, and you have a direct line to the decision makers for your cases and for the financing that you find appropriate for both the client, and we offer also case cost programs that might help your firm offset the cost of some of the expert witnesses that you use to maximize the return for your clients.
I know, Bruce, in one of our previous webinars, you gave some tips, some very practical tips that when you work with let's say a paralegal watching this or a lawyer watching this has some questions about these various products you hear about. I've always found you to be transparent, Bruce. So should they be intimidated about picking up the phone and calling you, and are there bad questions, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, there's never a bad question. One of the benefits is being able to explore what is good and what is good for your client's case. This financing or any type of financing is not always a blessing, and you know your client's needs and their wants better than we do. My question is, how do you use my money or our financing tools to maximize the return for your client? And if it's not going to do that, then let me help you explain to your client why this type of financing is not for them. Because if it doesn't help them, I don't want to put an obstacle in the path of the attorney whose job it is to be their advocate. So as their advocate, it may be that the client has to be told, look, we need to explore a different option. And quite often there are other options that are charitable in nature that might be able to sustain the client where they don't put me in between them and their recovery.
Okay.
The paralegal is the most important person in the whole. Truthfully, the paralegal is the front line to the client most often. You know your clients, so questions are never out of line. It may be that we're able to answer questions or provide a solution that was not thought of up front.
So how did they get, I see here we have your background number. How are you enjoying Georgia and Alonso today?
This has actually been very informative. I keep it on in the background and I listen to certain portions, and unfortunately I can't listen to the whole thing because my phone rings the whole afternoon. My brother's covering for me right now, and I would assume that as soon as my participation goes to listening again, my phone will again start to ring. I will put my name and number down below, okay, so that y'all can get in contact with either myself or Jason. We're here as your resource. That's how I look at us for you or for your attorney. What solutions we have, you won't know unless you ask. Okay. There are funding programs for pre-settlement, post-settlement, case cost funding. We also do attorney advances. It's what do you need to help your firm do better?
Okay. Well, we're going to let you relieve your brother of covering for you so you can answer those phones. But thank you, Bruce, and thank you for supporting Connectionology. You make these free for people to get the knowledge, and I know everybody appreciates it. So thank you so much.
I'm sorry I won't be seeing y'all next week early in Santa Fe. That sounds like a very nice, intimate way of meeting a group of fine attorneys and getting some speaker one-on-one time with some great speakers. So I will see you again the next FJA.
Okay.
And look forward to it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to work with Connectionology.
Thanks, Bruce. All right. Back
and I'll put my name below. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, man. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, Georgia, I'm looking at your outline, which we've just started. It's the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. What do you and Alonso want? And we'll go an extra 5 minutes bonus time, but like soccer or football, where we're into the extra time, which it's always difficult for me to track all that. But what would you like to talk about? One of the attendees wants to know, how do you relate to opposing paralegals when they request information, authorizations, et cetera? And I would expand that to lawyers. The defense counsel calls you, and it's so nice to you and Alonso. They're just so pleasant. And Georgia, we have a little expression here when you come in and want to do something to be nice to the defense. Can you throw that out there, and then let's see what Alonso would do with it?
Oh, is that the one about that I don't work for the defense? I don't know. I know that's one of them.
I think I ask you sometimes that you're so nice. Georgia, who do you work for?
Who do you work for?
Alonso, but isn't it important that y'all get along with the defense paralegals? Because you can really make everyone's life a little easier if y'all get along. But then some of them are so difficult. How do you, Alonso? Look at Alonso. He had a pained look there.
I mean, some of them, look, I get along very well with defense attorneys, and I think that was created by Gary Dordick. Everybody well respects them. We're straight shooters and everything. But on occasion, you do get, and I would have to say, some really nasty paralegals. I don't know if maybe they're just unhappy that they're working for the defense, or sometimes I just don't understand it. And at times it's, all you want to do is cooperate. Exchanging dates for depots, or, sometimes they say, hey, look, can we get an extension on discovery? Sure, no problem. But some of them you get very nasty, where you just basically ask them, can I get a date for your client so we can work it out? And all of a sudden, they don't want to cooperate. They build a wall, and you go around them and you find out their attorney is the nicest person. Sometimes they say if the paralegal is nasty, that attorney is going to be nasty. But sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes I just avoid even basically speaking to them. We can exchange by email. I'll CC their attorney on it and let him chime in. I'll put Gary on there, because I think if you can't work it out, it's best you get the two main people involved and have them kind of ease the tensions between the paralegals. So that's probably the best way to work things out with them if you're not going to get across to them.
All right, you, Georgia.
I totally agree. I'm pretty easy to get along with, and I tend to get along with other people relatively easily. But I've had some, you do this for long enough and you're going to run into those that are difficult. And most of the time it is the paralegal that's difficult. I don't know if they're having a bad day, or, as Alonso said, probably because they just don't want to be working for the defense. They're jealous that we're with the plaintiff's side. But I think that, if you, I take a couple of different tacks. One is if it's via email, because I've gotten some nasty emails before. I sit back and I know that not every email has to be responded to right that moment. And sometimes they don't even need to be responded to at all. Or only a portion of what was in the email warrants a response. And sometimes I've done that and responded to only the one little thing that needed the response. And, you know, it's been met with a, I'm sorry if I sounded rude, I didn't mean to be, you know, or something like that of that nature. So I think it's like us all, we're all under pressure. We all have stresses. And I think that, you know, we have those moments where we want to snip at somebody and how do I put this politically correct? We can't go in and I can't go in and yell at Mr. Beam, but I can be smart with that paralegal that's asking me for stuff I don't want to give her. But you know, you did mention something, and I did want to say on those the authorization situation, when somebody asks you for something that you don't want to give, you have to be very careful what you give to opposing counsel. You don't want to overstep your authority. There are certain reasons that you would not give something to opposing counsel that perhaps you're not even aware of, that your attorney has a particular reason for. So if your gut tells you, I don't know about that, you might want to not do it until you've gotten further instruction. And even if it's not about giving legal advice, you just want to make sure that you're, you know, mindful. Those authorizations, you don't know what those records are. Maybe there's a reason. There's a reason that your attorney doesn't want you to give that authorization. Maybe there's a work comp issue that the person was involved with 9/11 in New York. And those records are just not something that's relative, and we're going to hold those out as long as possible. You know, and so you just have to be very careful, very cautious.
How about judicial assistance? How important is it, Alonso, to get along with the judge's assistant?
Oh, that you better get along with the judge's assistant. No matter how mean and no matter what they say, you always have to be very, very cordial with them, very polite with them. You know, look, they have a hard job. I'm sure attorneys, other paralegals are calling them consistently, and you know, like Georgia said, maybe they're going to have a bad day, but you need to very much get along, because some of these court assistants, clerks will help you. Some of them are very nice and will help you. I've met a lot of court clerks here in Los Angeles. You call them, or they'll call you if, let's say, for example, your filing's not right. They get it and they'll give you that courtesy call saying, you know, I'm going to have to reject it, but if you send it, this is what's wrong with it. They'll give you the heads up before outright rejecting it. So it's always good to be very, very friendly with the court clerks. It does go a long way. And you also have to remember, if your attorney's going to be in trial, you want to make sure that they're nice to your attorney and not saying, you know, your paralegal over there, Alonso, is really, really nasty, and I don't want to deal with him. Or the judge themselves would tell Mr. Dordick, hey, your paralegal is very nasty to my court clerk. You don't want to hear that. So it's best just be very, very nice with all the court clerks. It goes a long way.
Georgia, do you have anything additional on that point?
I do, only that, you know, because I'm a Southern girl, you know, I think a lot of it boils down to a respect. And I always approach a judicial assistant with an accelerated level of respect, not just because of their position, but also for the reasons that Alonso said. I want them to say nice things about me when my boss comes to see their judge. And you never know who might be within earshot. I mean, you might be having a conversation with a JA and the judge might be standing there. And, you know, you don't want to say something that is going to affect your reputation with that judge in JA either, because you might need a special hearing. Something might not be posted on the available time slots, but you need it because you've got something coming up, and you have to have a motion for protective order heard, for example. Get on the phone to contact. You need to call in like a favor. And if you've been respectful and nice to that JA, it's going to go a lot further in them saying, well, I don't have anything, but let me talk to the judge and see what I can do. Because if you've been ugly, or if you've, been less than respectful, then they can just say, sorry, the judge has nothing listed, nothing available. And that's it. What can you do after that? You're not going to say, well, let me speak to the judge. Let me talk to your boss. It just doesn't work that way.
Now, do you have an advantage over the lawyer you work with? That does the lawyer say to opposing counsel, I have to run that by my paralegal, I'll get back to you? It's sort of the opposite for you. I see Stacy Field says, I always tell them that I have to run it by my attorney and we'll get back to them. That's a legitimate paralegal move, isn't it? I mean, what do you think, Alonso? I see you kind of smiling.
I think so. I mean, yes, unfortunately, the paralegals do run the show, but at times when you encounter like the request for authorizations and everything, if you don't want to outright tell them, no, we don't do that, yeah, I'd have to run it by my attorney and then come back to them and tell them, my attorney said, unfortunately, no, but he's more than willing to talk to your attorney more about it. It's funny, Gary, at times when we're moving trial dates of some sort, he always tells defense, whatever Alonso says goes. That's nice to hear. It's very nice to hear when your attorneys can acknowledge you and say, whatever he says go, and defense attorneys are like, okay, we'll work out the dates with him. But I would say when you're dealing with defense paralegals and what the protocol is in your office, don't be afraid to say no in a respectful way, saying, we just don't do that in our firm, and I apologize. If there's an issue, you can have your attorney send a letter to my attorney and he'll respond accordingly. But there's no reason sometimes to play back and forth saying, well, let me check with my attorney. It's a good way just to verify. You already know what the answer is going to be. But if you don't really want to have a confrontation with them, that's probably the best way.
Well, Georgia, I'm looking at your outline. We're going to have you and Alonso back. People seem to really, really enjoy. I'm looking at the comments here. They're having a great time listening today and participating. Really appreciate that. So it's kind of like the NFL, 2-minute warning now. Alonso, I'll let you go first. You have a couple of minutes. You think anything come to mind that you want to leave people with today that this discussion might have sparked something?
I mean, we're in a very stressful industry and everybody knows it. We've talked about resources out there. At times we want to take it upon ourselves to do all the work because we feel we're probably the best ones to do it. But I would say you work in a firm, you have a team, you have to trust your team. There's times, you have to all get together and help each other out. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm sure, Georgia, we've come across where we don't need the help. We're going to get this done ourselves, but in reality, we need the help. There's so many sources out there, paralegals out there that are willing to help. Paralegals are willing to give advice, attorneys that'll help the paralegals. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. We're all here to help. We're bounce off ideas. Maybe somebody has, we could have been we're in the industry, 30 years now, each of us, me and Georgia, we still reach out for help. We still reach out to other paralegals that might do something differently. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's sources and there's a lot of people that can help you out there. So I would say keep an open mind and don't be afraid to ask for help from everybody.
All right, Georgia, you get the last word, at least until you two come back.
I love what Alonso had
have an invitation. So you have your 2 minutes warning and or 2 minutes. Why don't you tell us about it? Then we'll give it back over to Ginger and she can talk about upcoming events. And I think close it today. Go ahead, Georgia.
Beautiful. Well, I love what Alonso had to say. You know, I think that we're paralegals by nature are control freaks. So I think that, you know, it's sometimes hard for us to reach out and ask for that help, but, you know, it's so important. And once you've been doing it a long time, you're going to understand that you have to get help. And that's what the teamwork is about. I know that, you know, it helps so that nobody gets too overwhelmed. You know, if you can spread it out, you know, and there are things that are time consuming that perhaps somebody can work on a little by little for you. If you plan and, you know, organize, and those are fortes of paralegals as well. But I do think that, you know, one of the things that I love is, and I call that DRB's famous daily top 3. That helps to organize the day and you feel successful, because if you put down 3 tasks, although we have 300, I know your day, Alonso, probably involves about 300 tasks a day, if not more. But if you at least accomplish 3, you can feel successful. And then the rest of it, if you get it done, then that's wonderful. So, you know, but asking for help, you know, that's what knowing when to seek those outside resources like HMR for the fast funds, you know, On Point Legal Nurse Consulting. That's another one that, you know, when you have those complex medical situations, reach out to those people who can help you find those medical experts, get those chronologies done if it's too vast a task for an in-house job. But, you know, reach out to your fellow support staff too. You know, do for them. That's the best way to have them do for you when you need. If you find yourself with a little bit of free time or just needing a mental break, go do something for someone else on one of their cases, and then you'll find that that'll be reciprocated, and it helps keep things moving, and it's part of teamwork.
Well, I also, Georgia, I love these comments, and there's one here from Stacy Fields, who I mentioned before. She says, Georgia, I feel like you may be my spirit animal. I love the chronologies too. So I want to thank you and Alonso again, George and Alonso. And we have other questions. We have Clarice Quant here from our office. She has questions. Clarice, go ask Georgia and they can get Alonso on the phone. We can't get to all the questions today. And Clarice is a fabulous paralegal and somebody you would all want at your office. Also, let us know at Connectionology too. You can always send Ginger a line and let her know what you're interested in. If you would like to be a speaker, let Ginger know. Also, we're always in the market for top flight trial paralegals. If you think you would like to work in sunny Florida, send us your information. And if we're not hiring, we'll get it to somebody else. And now I see Ted's in the house and Ginger is too. So Ginger, over to you.
Absolutely. And you guys did such a great job today. When I say Georgia, Alonso, and Doug, that you guys are a bright spot in our day, it is so true. I mean, I love this community and I love the fact that you guys are sharing so much great information and tips. And I love how interactive everybody who's watching. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the next Paralegal LAWboratory that we do. But before we get to the next one, I see that Ted is with us. I'm going to unmute you real quick, Ted. And we're so glad to have you because you're here to share who the next winner of the Great Big Coffee Giveaway is. So everybody's on edge. Who's going to be the grand winner today?
So I'm excited to announce that it's Jenna Vici from Melbourne, Florida is our winner today. So some great coffee headed your way.
Hey, great. All
Congratulations. Right. Now, do you guys know DKN Legal since you're right there in Melbourne, Doug?
I know her firm and I would like to say hello to her. And this is great. Well, Melbourne, you just never know. She doesn't work here. I'll let you know that.
Yeah.
Winner, but congratulations, Jenna. And Ted, thank you. You're always there for us and always so enthusiastic. And we really appreciate what HMR does and what you do, Ted.
I look forward to seeing y'all in just a few days down at TBI Med Legal. So that's going to be pretty exciting.
Absolutely. And Ted, both you and myself will reach out to Jenna in a few minutes to congratulate her and to send her that coffee. They are literally like 4 giant bags, so it's going to last a little while. So thank you. And if you didn't win, don't worry, because there'll be more opportunities to win later this month. There's still 3 more webinars that I'm going to be adding to the website, which are incredible. I'm telling you now, you're going to want to watch them, and I'll have those up later today. So thank you again for being with us, Ted. HMR is amazing. And again, our other partners, we're so lucky to work with people like Fast Funds, Plaintiff Support, and also On Point Legal Nurse Consulting. I'm going to send you all of their information so that way you guys can stay in touch. And speaking of contact information, this is what I'm going to send you. So you can always call on Georgia. You can always call on Alonso or Doug, any of our partners. We're just so grateful that you guys spent the time with us today. So that's all I have. I just want to thank everybody for watching. And unless you guys have any other comments, we hope you have a wonderful day.
Okay, seek
Thank you.
justice. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us
Bye.
today.
Thanks, Ginger.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.